And now, our feature presentation.
Hello everyone, I am back. But before you start heralding my triumphant return, hang on with the fanfare. This is just one video, okay? Just one. Welcome to episode number 14 of Computer Crane Kick, show where we sit down with rad people who are doing rad things. Today we sit down, it was August, it wasn't today. Anyway, today our guest tells us all about their workflow, their inspirations, and sleep paralysis in the crazy world of the shadow people. If you're interested in hearing about all of that and a lot more, stick around. But what's this episode called? This is Map to the Stars with Baldocaster. My name is Kieran. And you're watching Computer Crane Kick. Baldocaster, welcome to the show, my friend. Thank you very much for taking the time to sit down with us and chat.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
So I figured we just hop straight into things, and I'm pretty sure I already asked you when we spoke a long time ago, but how you got the name Baldocaster?
Yeah, that's a question. I guess it's a strange name. It's just something that people always ask. It was my Instagram handle, I guess, originally, because I'm bald, and before I was into synths and electronic music and stuff, or making it at least, I started as a guitar player, and I had my favorite guitar was a Telecaster, so that's kind of what it was. And then it was like an oh shit, like I think I submitted one of the first songs I did to New Retro Wave when they took them at the time years ago, and I didn't. At the time, they were like, "Yeah, we'll just give you feedback even if we don't post the song." And then they said, "Oh yeah, we like this. We're going to post it on like a smaller channel." And I was like, "Oh shit! I guess my name's Baldocaster." I thought about changing it before I put out like my first album because I was like, "It's silly," but like all my friends and everyone convinced me not to. They're like, "No, it's."
What was the track that you submitted to New Retro Wave? You remember?
It was an unreleased one. Well, no, actually, I guess I just put it out. I put on Bandcamp some sort of unreleased early tracks, and it was one of those called Going Digital.
Oh, okay.
And that was like the very first.
Oh yeah, that's on your early demos on Bandcamp.
Yeah, I guess there's actually probably 2 or 3 songs that were even before that on that EP now, but that was the first one that I released in any capacity.
Right.
Just on the YouTube thing.
And before that, Moondogs and Yellow, those two are the ones you were talking about that you actually made prior to making Going Digital?
Yeah, I think those 2 would have been before that.
How did you get into electronic music, let alone synthwave?
I've always been into like some electronic music, like, Daft Punk and Justice and Jean-Michel Jarre stuff. But I started getting like very bored with guitar and guitar music and being in bands and that sort of stuff.
Right.
Like it just felt like very played out to me at the time, and like everything was just kind of rehashed. And it was, well, what am I doing if everything's been done? So I got pretty jaded on that for a little while, and then one of my friends got an old Juno. He was making very different kind of music. Like he was making like more like classical ambient sort of music.
Right.
But I played that and I was like, oh my god, this is fucking awesome. And he was actually my roommate at the time. And so I was like, that's really cool. And at the time, I think I had already started getting into some synthwave, like, a lot of the earlier stuff.
Yeah.
But then I found Wave Shaper, and he was the one where I was really just like, this is incredible. And after a little bit of listening to him and playing my friend's Juno, I was like, okay, I actually want to start, move to like figuring out how to make electronic music and stuff like that. And I went and drove up to New York on Craigslist and found a Juno for myself.
So you actually got an analog synth to start. You didn't start with a DAW or something.
No. Or yes, sorry. Yeah, I did. That's what I did. And that was, I mean, they were cheap at the time. Like, it was really cheap compared to what they are now. And ours, I mean, that's like what, and it still continues to excite me. Like, obviously, I don't think you need any of the actual physical synths to make the music. And I don't think you can make music that sounds just as good or even better, if you're a better engineer.
Right.
But it gets me excited and like inspired, and I like playing them and stuff. But I still use the software stuff now too. But first starting off, that's how I kind of got into it, and it got me excited. And it was like very easy to learn, like on the simple synth, like when it's like in front of you and you have all the parts and you can change the sound and stuff.
Oh, that's super cool. I was actually going to ask that because when I watch your videos of you playing around with these analog synths, it looks so much fun. And it looks like, I know it's not easy, but you make it look easy. And you make it look like if I had one in front of me, I could just twist some knobs and make some sounds that would be like somewhat enjoyable.
I mean, you could. Like the cool thing about synths is, and software ones too, is that most of them have some kind of like presets that you can like start from. So when I got the Juno, I think probably that first song on those early demos, I think Moondogs is what it's called.
Yep.
That was like basically all just the presets that happened. Like I still didn't really know. I couldn't like make it sound from scratch myself.
Right.
So that was, and there weren't even the factory presets that actually came on it. There were just the ones that the guy that I bought it from had on there that I was using in that song. And maybe like tweaking them and moving a few things and seeing what happened. But I definitely wasn't like making all those sounds myself.
Yeah.
So you can sort of like use stuff as, it's like nice. You can like, as you progress, do more and more yourself, or not if you don't want to. You just want to click through some sounds and hear something cool, and that inspires you. Like I do that too.
Yeah. It's so cool, man. Seeing the analog synths, it just looks like a completely different way to engage. And I bet you it's even better for you because you said your actual job outside of music production is your sound engineer?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, like I mix television shows and documentaries and stuff.
Yeah, so that also helps separate because you're probably doing all of that sitting in front of a computer, whereas opposed to with your synths, you can actually, it feels a lot more different when you have hands on the dials.
Yeah, and it's like nice to just not constantly be sitting on Pro Tools. I still prefer to like actually record songs and write them in Pro Tools even all day. Like I don't want to just not have a computer at all.
Right.
Otherwise I would just sort of like loop the same 4 bars over and over and never get anything done personally.
Right.
But it is sometimes, I mean, a lot of times, honestly, when I would like writing or recording, I just come in and like play the synth and just make sounds so that maybe when I am inspired, I'll come in and I'll have all these great sounds that I made that I like ready to go, you know?
Right. Can you walk me through like your workflow, how you work? Because you just said you would be playing the same 4 loops. Do you break it up and make something on the synth and then put that into your DAW and move on to the next part? Could you walk me through it a little bit?
Yeah, I like record as I go. Like there's the writing and the recording and the arranging are all one process for me. I don't like write a song all the way through in my head or like, separate from the computer and then like you would like in a band and then go and record it. Like I writing the song as it's getting made, and to me the sounds are the parts, that certain part might not work with a different sound and it sort of inspires it. So usually I'll come up with like maybe a first part, like a chord or a little chord progression or bass line, or and then I'll get that in, and maybe like if it's a part that would need drums, put drums in there, and I'll just sort of do like a vertical layer. So I'll get one section with all the parts I think, and then I'll just move on to the next section. And if I need to, I can come back and rearrange stuff. But I just sort of like build each section out and then go on to the next, depending on what parts I'm making is.
As you're building it up, do you tweak anything in your DAW, or is it mainly through your analog synths? How much work are you doing on your computer compared to analog?
Once I'm actually like tracking a song, it's probably more on the computer. I mean, most of the instruments are probably the synths, but it's like I'm pretty quick at like getting the sounds I need because once I'm like moving on a musical idea, that's what I'm focused on as opposed to messing with spending a whole lot of time making a sound on a synth, I'll usually go to something I have already and like change it to be what it needs.
Right.
And then I'm doing, morphing and doing whatever mixing needs to be done as I go. Like, so usually by the time I'm writing a song, it's like 95% mixed already. Like, I don't really mix, then I mix the song. It's like, well, I did it. Like, as I added that chord part, I took out the low end that it didn't need. I already, and like put a reverb, like I already made it work.
Right. Okay.
Really the only stuff I would do at the end is like, take a step back and listen and be like, okay, it's not working because of this. And then I'll make adjustments. But a lot of the stuff is I do because I'm mixing it and doing it as I go through.
Do you find you have that process because of your background? Your career is you basically are mixing. Do you find it's easier for you to mix while you're making the music as opposed to going through it and mixing everything
Probably.
after?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't. Like, I logically in my mind, it just doesn't even make sense to do it the way to like just throw a bunch of ideas together and the sounds maybe don't quite fit, and then you're like, I'll figure that out later. Because to me, what I've learned as an engineer is that you don't really have to mix if you do good sound design at the beginning. Like, if you pick the sounds and make them work, then that is the mix. Like, you have to do very little if all the sounds sort of fit together. So as I'm picking the sounds and writing the parts and picking, what octave it's going to be in, if it's long notes or short, all that stuff like kind of is the mixing to me. And so I don't really have to do that much later on. So yeah, I'm like, I can't stop. Like, if I record a big fat sound, like, I can't just leave it there taking up all the space. I have to make it work real quick before I can move on. Otherwise, I don't want to come back later and realize, I really need a different sound in here. This one just really doesn't work. And that's going to make my whole, like, all the balance of all the parts, like, fall apart. So I try to get it right as I'm there.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. I know a lot of people do kind of leave things and go, oh, I'll tweak with that a little more later and come back and mix it. But
yeah, and there's no problem with it. It's just the way I work.
Yeah,
I found
I feel like
it makes me less stressed about it.
Yeah, no doubt. I feel like I would be the same, where I'd want to make it work at the start, because like you said, if you are start changing stuff and you find that something really doesn't work, I feel like that has the potential to change the entire sound. And then you might start kind of just going down the wormhole of changing each thing, trying to make it fit, and then you might end up with something that you don't even like anymore because it's so far off from what you initially created.
Particularly if it's like one of the key elements, or like I tend to think about either parts, whether they're drums or like synth parts. Like, if there's usually one or two things that carry the energy of a section. Like, if it's that part that ends up being wrong, like, you realize, oh, my bass part here that was really carrying the energy of this section of the song and making it work and feel interesting. I really, to get the mix to work, I need to cut out all this bottom end or mids or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then you do that, and then it's like, oh, that just like sucked all the energy out. I realized that I was sort of like faking it.
Right.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, it happens still to me.
Yeah.
But I try to make it happen less.
That's fair. So you were in bands before you started making electronic music?
Yeah, a few, like in college.
Do you ever use your guitars in your electronic music?
Well, funny that you asked. I actually, I was just so jaded and so over it, and I just didn't even want to play guitar at all. I actually basically got rid of all my guitars pretty early on. Like, I sort of kept my favorite one for a year or two, and I just didn't play. Like, I basically haven't played guitar really other than more than 20 minutes total in the past like 5 or 6 years. But recently I've been feeling like, I've been sort of like a little bit stuck in terms of direction that I want to go with the electronic music. So I was thinking maybe I'll start bringing guitar and bass into it in a different way.
Right.
And so I've actually, like, it's not even here. I bought a guitar, an electric guitar. I've had an acoustic still, but I bought an electric again to start like weaving it into stuff. But probably whatever I put out next, there'll be at least some guitar.
Nice. That's awesome to hear that you've gotten past the hurdle of being super sick and jaded of it, and now you can start incorporating it. And I'm interested to hear what you come up with the guitar in there too.
Thanks.
recently I was talking to Tonebox, and he incorporates guitar in a lot of his stuff, and I didn't even know that until he pointed it out. So it's pretty cool what you can do with guitars, or I'm sure it's not even just guitars now, any instrument you want, and modify it to make it sound how you want it to sound. And do you ever use anything else, like just ambient sounds? Do you record anything or anything like that?
Yeah, I'm really good, like very close friends with Jonas. He does fucking awesome stuff with all his sound design. He's very, very good. Technically I did record one guitar part on one random single I put out years ago called New Horizon. There's a very like subtle guitar part in it.
Okay.
Right before I sold that guitar. But I've done stuff with like I'll put ambience in a lot. Like a lot of my songs I'll sort of add noise to, and like vinyl crackle and stuff, and that just kind of adds vibe sometimes. But I added some just like I think it was like subway ambience in one of my songs once, just like the sounds of like people in the subway station. And I've definitely done stuff like I think that adds a lot of vibe. And I think there's one like recorded with a microphone sound on my first album.
Oh, cool.
It was like a percussion sound, like I wanted it to be like, and so I got like a yellow phone book.
Yep.
And I was like flipping all the pages in front of a microphone, and that's on I don't remember. It might have been Blood Moon, the song on my first album.
Sweet.
It's on one of the parts. But that's the only like record the microphone probably sound on any of them.
I'm gonna have to listen through and see if I can pick it out. Blood Moon off of Moonrise?
Yes. I'm pretty sure it's in like the bridge of that song.
Nice. What was it like getting Moonrise put on vinyl? Was that your first ever vinyl?
It was but it was my first album, like of my full-length albums to get its own vinyl. Like I had done like some tracks on compilations, and I had two of my EPs got put on like a split double album. But that was the first like full LP album that I had, which is cool because I always wanted that one, just with the artwork it had and everything. That was like one of my like very few like goals, I guess, with Baldocaster was to get an album, or that particularly on vinyl, which I guess I've done at this point.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. And that was through Cryptogem, Paradise Arcade Boys.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that's awesome. What was it like working with them?
They're great. They're really cool guys, and it was all around the same time that they put on a show with me and Tonebox and Makeup and Vanity Set, both of whom I'm very good friends with. So that was just like an awesome time. I think they had just gotten the test pressing, and we listened to it and stuff.
Oh, nice.
When I went up, they flew me up to St. Paul.
That's a pretty sweet experience.
Cool. Yeah, that was very cool. And I'm not like, I don't really want to do live shows because it's just a lot of energy that I'd rather be spending writing. But I was like, all right, I'll do one. They were like very insistent, and they were like, it was like with two of my like really good friends. So I was like, okay, I'll do it.
Yeah,
I'll do it. And it was very fun.
And that was potentially your only live show. Probably,
yeah, unless someone that I really want to play with or something that twists my arm. But I don't particularly have a desire. It's different to me, I guess, with electronic music than like in a band. Like in a band playing live, it's great because it's sort of different every time playing the thing, and you only have to worry about your own part. In electronic music, to me, it's sort of like there's a lot of pitfalls to it that don't exist with like a band. There's like, you've got to like make it look interesting, like so. I was like, I want to be playing something on a keyboard for most of it, but then later I was like, watching someone play a keyboard is really boring, and it's like I don't want to just be like playing over tracks and just playing. I don't know. It's a whole bunch of stuff where it's like I feel like I need to make it worthwhile, and then that ends up being like, oh, I need all this equipment to do that, and then I need all this time, and I would just rather do this because like. I mean, I think someone like Vanity Set does it really good. Where he's like got a semi-improvisational nature, where he's like got all the parts going, but he's also sort of making some of it up as he goes, and
Right.
that I think makes it really cool and interesting and worthwhile. But my music, I guess, isn't really structured that way, and I just didn't want to go down that rabbit hole. But I guess if I was big enough to where this was like an actual job, then I would probably do it because that's money as a musician.
Right. I think a lot of people make a lot of their money through touring,
Yeah, I think these days it's almost all of it through touring and merch.
especially because tickets are so expensive to see bands now, but not like
Yeah.
not small bands, but like holy shit. I can't remember what I saw recently. It was like $300 for nosebleeds. I'm like, man, people pay this?
Jesus. I've never been to a stadium show. Something about that. It's just like, I'll just rather just watch a video of it on YouTube or something like that.
Yeah.
But like some of them are, I don't go to a lot of live shows, I guess, because it's really fucking loud, and I have to like protect my ears because it's how I do my job.
Oh, that makes sense.
So I don't go to a crazy amount of live shows.
Wear earplugs when you do.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Do you do any mixing for other artists as well, or?
No, I generally, it's funny because it's my job for like mixing post stuff. So like, content with like dialogue and films. But I actually
Right.
really don't enjoy mixing music. So I really wouldn't want to do, I would like quit the field and do a completely different job before I had to like mix other people's music.
That's fair.
I discovered that as I was in college for engineering music, which was wonderful. By the time I got to the end, I was like, man, I don't want to engineer anyone's music but my own. When it's my own, it stresses me out enough that like for a little while on some of my earlier stuff, even though I'm capable of doing it, just for the stress, like I was like, I'm just gonna have tone box do it. And so for my first 2.5, maybe the third one, some of that, I had to mix and master it.
Yeah. That's fair, man. I can't imagine the amount of energy it takes just to do everything, and especially on top of also working a full-time job, trying to produce and mix and
Yeah.
master.
And I'm like very, very self-critical and like not really, I mean, I guess perfectionist, but like it would just bother me so much about stuff that I wouldn't be able to get to the writing part of it, that I would be like, I would put down 2 parts and be like, this sounds like shit, and then I would just like get mad.
Yeah.
I would never get anything to. I think now I'm like, I have a much healthier relationship and a little more confidence in it, so I'm able to do it myself.
I think,
But it was nice to get another set of ears on some of that earlier stuff, because I was to do the electronic music production specifically, because it's very different than like recording bands and rock and folk and stuff that I was more used to.
right. Yeah, it's probably very different switching between those two. You came out with 2 EPs this year, or since your last LP, and it seems like you come out with LPs pretty frequently. We have something that we're gonna see in 2023. What's the upcoming future look like for you?
Right now, I actually don't have any like finished songs or like projects started. I've been sort of like slowed down in the past maybe like a year or so, pretty much since I finished the last full-length album.
Yeah.
Murray, which I finished around last May or June, and I think I put it out in like August, maybe somewhere around there.
August
Yeah, and I think you
24th.
said I put out maybe an EP 3 or 4 months after that, and then another one in June or July. But I've been sort of like stuck trying to figure out, because I don't want to just like retread the same sort of stuff over and over.
Right.
I've been sort of stuck figuring out what kind of direction the next thing I do is going to be. Like I've done random little singles or that short little EP or something that were sort of similar to the stuff I'd just done. But I kind of, I want each thing to change a bit to keep. I mean, that's just to keep me interested. Like
Yeah.
I'm happy to come in here and like jam and do the thing, but after a while it starts to feel like, oh, I've sort of done something just like this before. And so I think that's probably part of what I'm feeling like I want to bring some of the guitar and bass stuff in
Yeah, that's fair.
to sort of spark some newer, different ideas.
Bring something
even if they're
fresh.
things where I like write a part on the guitar that it ended up going on the synth. Like a lot of, well, not a lot of, but a couple of the songs on probably 3 or 4 of them on Moonrise, my first album, were actually things that I, before I even got into synths or as I got into synths, had written on guitar that I then translated onto synth. So maybe that would just makes you write different kind of parts.
Totally.
So maybe some stuff like that'll happen.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, man. Experimenting with different instruments kind of leads you to go, oh, I wonder how that would sound on one of my synths, or...
Yeah, which I've just been like so tunnel vision on the synths for the past few years, because they were so new to me and interesting that now I'm sort of like getting a little... the shine has worn, so I'm looking for other ways to keep it interesting.
What do you feel about synthwave as a genre as now as opposed to when you started?
This might be bleak. Synthwave itself, it feels like it's kind of done. Not in the like it's fucking dead, there's not gonna be any more music, but in the I feel like we've seen all the places it's gonna go.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like when I started it felt like there was this like really sort of like bright going upward momentum that like I was getting on this like ride. It was like, you know, you could get exposure easily and stuff, but now it seems like most people have like it's become very, very saturated. Like there's lots and lots and lots of people making it because it's awesome and fun and stuff.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people have moved on a bit or branched out. Like I feel like me and a lot of my friends have sort of started to push into adjacent or different or blending other genres.
Definitely.
And I'm a little more interested in that. Definitely like into to me, it's always into like some of the more the stuff that like inspired me.
Yeah.
From like the 70s and 80s, but maybe blending that with other stuff. But I mean, there's definitely there's like tons of synthwave stuff coming out, and there's still gonna be really great stuff coming out. A lot of the artists I really like. Something about it just, I guess, feels like a little done to me. I think from a musical movement perspective. Like I think we've seen all the variety that it's going to offer in terms of like sparking other musical movement, things like that. Because it's been around like over a decade, which is how long musical movements tend to be, and shorter than that.
Right.
If that makes any sense. But that doesn't mean I think it's like dead. There are genres that have their thing and make their mark and inspire people. And then that genre just keeps going, and people make good stuff in that genre for decades. Like a lot of electronic, like house and techno and things like that,
right,
are still going. So I think it's in the later phase to me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it also depends on how much synth you've listened to. Like the more you listen to,
some of it seems so fresh when you hear it, and then after a while you're like, I've heard this.
Yeah, exactly. You hear one retro wave track, you've heard many retro wave tracks, and I'm not saying all of them. There's still people who come out and can have very fresh takes, but I find when you've been listening to it for 10 years, you're kind of like, okay, I need something a little bit different here. And I think that's also just people listening to music. Like most people don't listen to the same music their entire lives, so it's natural to move around. But I find it interesting that a lot of producers are kind of going out of the synthwave realm, but people who listen to synthwave don't want to let you go. You know, they're like, grasping to your ankle and being like, you're still synthwave. What is this? Why is this not sound like synthwave?
I mean, it's like I always like the artists. I mean, my favorite ones were always the ones who were like on the edge of it anyway. Like really the only one who was firmly within synthwave, who I'm like, that is fucking synthwave, that I really, 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 really love, is Wave Shaper.
Yeah.
But most of my other favorite ones, like Makeup and Vanity Set or Pilot Priest is probably my favorite musician, are all sort of like on the edge. And like some of the stuff they do is incredibly synthwave, and a lot of it is just totally not.
Totally. And it's
that's
funny.
Always... And you don't like all of it, but they kind of meander around and stuff, and that's always interesting. I feel like it's better, artists need to continue to change, and you're not always gonna like all of it. Like, you might like a lot of it, and then after all, you're not. Or, I mean, you could just be like AC/DC and just do the same thing over and over for decades.
Yeah, I mean, I guess people still listen and love classic rock. Like, they play all that shit on radios nonstop still.
Yeah, but they're just playing the same, like, golden era albums of those artists, which I'm like, if you want that from the Synthwave guys, you've got like 4 or 5 albums from them, like.
True. Yeah, that is
to
true.
me, at least. And I'm all for artists continuing to change. And it's like, even with some of my favorite ones, they're going to lose me, and I'm okay with that at some point. Like,
Right.
one guy I really like is Steven Wilson, who's like I guess for lack of a better term, like in progressive rock stuff. Like, he was in the band Porcupine Tree, a lot of people know that, and then he went solo. And a lot of people have just been constantly shouting, "Why don't you start Porcupine Tree again?" I think his solo stuff's the best, and he did 4 albums that were all awesome and all very different. And then I think with the last 1 or 2, I'm like, all right, he lost me on this. But I'm glad he keeps changing.
Yeah,
for the best.
Definitely. And I think it's really important for the artists as well. Something that people don't often think about is the artists. And
yeah, they do it for themselves.
They think about just how the music sounds to them. And what I always say to people when they're creating anything, whether that's music or art or anything that's creative, is you do it for the love of it. And if you're not enjoying what you're doing, you need to change it so you enjoy it again. There's no point in making something that you're not enjoying the process or the outcome.
At that point, you're just making it for other people what they want, which is
exactly
that's how you get bad art.
And that shit, that is to a T what happens with big platforms like YouTube and Twitch and stuff like that. Is people start out making, I hate calling it content, but people make content, and something does well. So then they try to replicate that success by making something similar, and they keep doing that, whether or not it's something that they actually want to continue doing. And I'm sure that music production has those same pitfalls.
Yeah. I mean, if you're really pushing hard, you get goals for certain levels of quote unquote like success or things.
Another buzzword.
If those are things driving you, as opposed to just the expression and creativity part of it,
right?
Which is the only, for me, that's why I do it. So if I don't, then I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah.
And a lot of the other stuff, like, obviously, I mean, you want it to succeed, you want people to like it, like,
for sure. Yeah, of course.
but
you're doing it for yourself.
Sucks early on, because you're spitting into the void. If no one knows who you are, I feel like you have to do a little work to get going. But then after a while, I'm like, for me, all the promotion work, I just kind of gave up doing that, and I just put stuff out.
Oh, it's so fucking draining, man.
It's so draining. I did a bunch of it and got labels on the first 2 or so albums I did, and then after that, I'm like, all right, of a small amount of people will now pay attention when I put something out for me to not feel bad about myself, so that's enough. I'm just going to put stuff out.
Yeah.
It's just enough for me to not feel terrible about it.
That's
which is great. That's all I want.
That's where you need to be, man. That's it. That's all. That constantly wanting more, it's so draining. But social media, the thing with music production now, it's not just making music. It's exactly like you said. You have to post on Instagram and Facebook and fucking everywhere promoting your stuff. This is coming out.
I mean, people might make you think you have to do that.
That's true.
But I think if your stuff is really good and from the heart and resonates with people,
I think like you said, just at the start,
interesting and unique, then people will. Yeah, it's maybe at the start you got to do some of that, but I don't know. I've seen people that just never put any effort in, and it's just good stuff, and it eventually finds the audience. But it's luck, I guess, too.
Yeah, a lot of that with social media is a good portion of luck. I mean, you can make all of the good stuff and post it, but
Yeah.
if people don't see it or hear it, it's so hard to get ears on things or eyes on things now, because we're so like, our attention spans are so short now that if it's anything more than 30 seconds, people are like, oh my god.
Yeah. And to me, I guess it's a bit of a blessing. Like, I don't know if I would even want to get that kind of success to where this became my job, because I feel like that would suck I want to do this because I want to do it, not because I feel like I have to. So it's kind of a blessing to me that I don't get that level of success, so I just don't have to put in that effort.
That's a good point, because once you make something your primary source of income or your career, now there's stress involved with needing to make a certain amount of money. And if
and you have to do things that you normally wouldn't want to do.
Exactly.
Because it's your job for money. Like, if someone commissions you to make a song for a certain thing, or write this music for me, or like make a beat for me to rap on, or something like that, you're like, okay, this is my rate,
right,
to do that, or rather than just do things that you accepting those things that you want to do.
Yeah. With your music, I was gonna say it's very emotive, and I feel like you put a lot of feeling into your music. Is that something you use almost like a form of healing for another, I don't know how to phrase it, a way for you to take your mind off of other things is creating music?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think most artists are probably the same way, but I definitely do a lot of whatever my current mind or mood is into stuff. Like, there was particularly one EP I put out where I was like incredibly, I think it was like during COVID and all this wild shit that was going on, I was just like really stressed out.
Right.
I was like, I need to make something very ambient and like chill and like not worry about stuff. Like, I was like, all the songs were really simple. They were just sort of one or two ideas, and I just like, I don't want to have to worry about song structure and making sure the song has catharsis and themes. I was like, made it to relax. I was like, I might not even put this out. This is just
right,
to calm myself. But I ended up putting out that EP. But
what was that one?
That was Cult of Saturn.
Oh, nice, dude.
Which I think the timing on it came out at the beginning of like 2021 or something, so it would have been right after.
Yeah, March 15th.
Yeah.
And then Ident, was that did you get any inspiration from
that was
Ident
a similar
from
one
work?
where I was like, these are just like fun little, what was that?
Oh, I was curious if you got any inspiration from Ident from like what you do as a career. You know, because it kind of has that like TV feel.
Yeah, I was sort of like imagining like old TV shows and movies, how they have the little and like channel like TV networks and stuff. They have they call them items, like it's the identifier identity of the channel and stuff.
Okay.
And it started out where I just made like, I was like, I wonder if I could make one of these, and it won't take very long because there's a few on there that actually are items where they're like 15 seconds and they're just like like that.
Yeah.
I was like, I wonder if I can make that and make it like really vibey and old sounding. And then I just kind of kept making them. I had some like little like 1 or 2 minute jams that I thought fit. And it just kind of got out of that. That was another one where it was like a very like no pressure, stress relief, just little sort of like synth nuggets, I call them, where they're not really like these fully developed like giant. They're just this. There's an artist called One O Tricks Point Never OPN who does a lot of things like that, where there's just like, this is a cool little nugget, and that's it, and that's what it is. And it's great.
Just a little bite.
Or like, there's some Boards of Canada songs that are like that, where it's like, I feel like their best song, Kind Industries, or however you say it, it's like a minute, and it's literally just one riff on a synth, and it's amazing.
Yeah, that's super cool, man. It's fun to go in, especially with like the motivations to make that specifically. Like, I want to make some old-timey TV sounds, and I'm gonna see if I can make some. Just play around with different ones. Were you watching any like old movies or anything that inspired you to create those?
Not like while I was actually working on it, but around the time of it, yeah, for sure. Like me and a few of my friends were going through all the old Hellraiser movies,
Oh, nice.
which are wonderful and ridiculous. And they were very 80s horror movie, and
Yeah.
I think there was some in there that were sort of inspired by that. And I just watched a lot of like the old 50s and 60s samurai movies. So there was one in there that was sort of inspired by that. And
Nice.
a lot of things like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Those are super fun. Memory was your latest LP. How was writing and releasing that one?
That was good. It probably took me longer, just because I feel like I've just slowed down in terms of like how often I'm writing stuff. I'm still pretty quick when I actually like start an idea, but
Yep.
as time has gone on, I do it less. So that was sort of spread out over probably like 6 to 8 months.
Yeah.
But it was enjoyable. Like it was very relaxed, which I liked. And I sort of pulled in some songs that I had maybe done even longer. Like one of them, I think, was even a year before. But it was all that one had a strong concept from the beginning. Usually, I guess a lot of my things will have the concepts to them, but the concept sort of on most of them arises as I'm in the middle of it or toward that part of it.
Right.
And then it starts informing, because I sort of get a vibe from the few things I've done subconsciously.
Right.
I'll be like, oh yeah, it feels like this. And then it sort of funnels into the last few things and the naming of the tracks and stuff.
Do you
and
go
the artwork.
Do you ever go back and modify anything at that point when you're like, oh, you know what, this kind of feels like this, and makes you go back and change
Maybe
anything,
just the track names.
Oh, okay.
But I won't like change the music.
Yeah, because that's basically
to force it into a theme.
Yeah, it's a reason
like
why you chose
the theme. Kind of comes about because it fits the music or something like that.
Right.
But memory, I kind of had the theme at the beginning, I think. Particularly the first track had some like spoken word stuff on it from Alan Watts, a quote, and that sort of went with that. And I had sort of seen this. I'd had these like it's all about like dreams and the subconscious and the parts of your identity and like what's it called? Sleep paralysis, where I'd had 2 instances of that where you wake up but you're still dreaming and you can't move. Yeah. And because you're still dreaming, your like eyes are open, you're looking in the world, and you can like hallucinate and stuff. And early, I was like screaming at the top of my lungs, and my girlfriend had to wake me up.
Holy fuck!
And she was like, and that happened to me twice in like 2 weeks. And I was seeing these like shadow figures and animals. And
you
around
saw
the same
shadow
time,
people.
Yeah, and around the same time, maybe like a month later, I saw the Pilot Priest, one of her artists, directed this movie come true, and it was like, fuck, this is exactly what I saw. Like, it was like, I guess he had it a bunch as a kid, and other people had it, and it always looks something in the subconscious human mind tends to see these similar things, and it delves a little bit into like how that is connected to your identity and self. So from that, I sort of read about some like Carl Jungian stuff to do with identity and sleep and the Alan Watts stuff, and that sort of. It was all these odd coincidences around the similar stuff at the same time. So I was starting to make it around then.
Right.
And I didn't really even have a choice. It was just like, this is what it's about.
Yeah. Dude, that's wild. Someone else I was talking to recently had sleep paralysis. That's terrifying.
I haven't had it since, thank God. I was like really tired, and I think I slept on my back. So I was probably getting less like oxygen or something. I don't know what was going on.
Yeah.
It was wild.
Yeah, man. I started watching some documentary on it, and I'm like, I'm turning this off because I don't want to open the door to this happening to me. If I go to bed and I'm fucking thinking about sleep paralysis and shadow people, I'm like, that's not what I want to be thinking about when I go to sleep.
To be honest, it was it was less scary than it seems like it would be. Like when you hear it described, you're like, "Oh my god!" But in the moment, I think the second time it was not really scary at all. But the first time it was a little bit because I was like, the dream I was having was that I was with a team of detectives. We were going into some house to look for evidence of a murder, and we started maybe to realize that the murderer was still in the house.
Oh shit.
And then I went to the upstairs. That's when I think I woke up because that room just was my bedroom.
Right.
And then there was suddenly a shadow thing like zipping around. It wasn't a person, it was like a little like squirrel or cat or something, but it was a shadow and it was like jumping all around and bouncing, and that's probably when I was like, screaming because it was like jumping.
I was gonna say.
And then the next time it was also a squirrel that was like, the second time it was like just driving a race car, just driving really wild on the highway, and I was chasing it. So it was less scary that time, but it was pretty wild. But it had like the little white glowing eyes, and it sort of looked very similar to how it did become true.
Reminds me of the killer rabbit from Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Yeah, it was like that, but like frantic.
Gonna fucking bite your head off. I like how you said it wasn't scary, but your partner had to wake you up.
The first one, the more I think about it, it was pretty scary.
Screaming at the top of your lungs, your partner had to wake you up.
And I didn't, as I was sitting there, I didn't know I was screaming.
Yeah.
I was like, I thought I was totally still and I couldn't move, and I was just trying to move my arm. But apparently I was just going like, "Wah! Probably for her, a horrifying way.
That's so fucking terrible waking up to that. That reminds me of an ex I had. She had night terrors, so she would wake up and just be screaming. Essentially, it's the same thing as sleep paralysis, but it's like people are almost waking up and they can still like full-blown hallucinate. And so she hallucinated one time that there was like this little kid at the end of the bed, and woke up like a blood-curdling scream. That's what I woke up to. And
yeah, I mean, it's probably the same thing. That sounds basically like what
fucking hilarious. What's coming up for you? You've been kind of not doing too much musically. Are you still playing music and trying to write things?
I mean, I still like play my synths every day and like make sounds, and I'll do like little jams and test ideas and mess with new sounds. I guess it's just taking me a little while to find a direction that I want to commit to and like finish songs with. So I've got like tons and tons of little like 1 minute nuggets and jams and things that I've done.
Synth nuggets.
Probably never turn into anything, but they're just like sort of like exercising the musical muscles.
Nice. That's sweet.
But I guess I'm just looking for some kind of spark or interesting thing to get me going on the next thing.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. So just let people know where they can find you.
Yeah, any of the streaming services or Bandcamp. The only social media I really use anymore is Instagram. So I guess if you want updates or behind the scenes videos or anything like that, or to communicate with me, that's probably the place.
Yep.
Just Baldocaster.
Hell yeah, man. I'll put that in the description as well so people can find all that. Thanks a lot for sitting down and chatting, man. It's been great. It's awesome to see behind the scenes a bit and into your process and hear about you screaming from seeing shadow people.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me, man.